Croeso and welcome to Beyond the Track podcast. My name is James C, coach, commentator, lecturer and endurance runner.
And I am Jenny Long, GB distance runner.
We'll be going beyond the track, speaking to the athletes about their stories and also the very best of the sports professionals in Wales and beyond.
We hope you will leave each episode feeling better informed and more inspired about athletics and running in Wales. Hello and welcome back to another episode of Beyond the Track podcast. Today we are switching things up a little and delving deep into super shoes and physiology with Dr. Dan Osborne Nash. He's a physiologist for Welsh athletics and Welsh triathlon, as well as a host of other things like a father, a marathon runner and an online running coach. So Dan, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Jen. Great to be here.
Yeah, it's great to have you, Dan, because I know you're a very busy man. And one of our hot topics we're going to get into today is super shoes. But first, let's find out a little bit more about yourself. How did you get into athletics and running yourself?
Yeah, so I've been running pretty much my whole life, for as long as I can remember anyway. Both my parents were runners. They dragged us along to this thing called hashing, which I don't know if you've come across before.
I haven't.
No? Well, it's all over the world. Basically, it's very family orientated. You would get a group of very much social runners following a trail of flour or lime, which has been laid like the day before. And it's a little bit like orienteering.
Yeah.
You end up at the pub at the end. There would be punishments for people doing stuff stupid, like downing a pint of beer, Coke if you're a kid. That was my introduction to running, but quite quickly joined the primary school cross country club. My mum was the one who led the club, so primary school cross country. Found out I was quite good at it, so just kept it going, joined the local club, and I guess the rest is history, really.
So going from club athletics into university, was that where you made a couple of big jumps? I remember, I think it was the British University's champs at some point. I think, was it Cheltenham, where you had a really good cross-country race and you continued then to progress onto the roads?
Yeah, I think I was always operating at a good level.
Yeah.
Like I was doing my classic inter-counties cross-country every year, and I would pretty much always be the top 30, but not the top 20.
Yeah.
So I wasn't a freak, but I was always pretty good.
Yeah.
And then I was useless on the track. I've got no speed. I always joke with my wife, she's got a faster 400-meter time than me, and was a good 15.8 runner. But she's run 58 seconds for 400. But I think I've got 58 high, and she's got 58 low on there. So
Bragging rights.
I would do the track in the summer and do okay, but not great. But the cross country I was always good at. And then, on my roads as well. I started on my roads quite early because my club was, I grew up in Cornwall, so I ran for East Cornwall Harriers, and we were doing, I was doing 5-mile races, 10K races pretty much as soon as I could. So 15, 16, I was on my roads in the winter too. But I think my first proper breakthrough was coming 8-foot Bucks Cross, and that qualified me for the World University Cross Country Champs.
That was a team we were on together
I
as
know.
well. 2016
Yeah,
it
I was gonna
was.
say,
Yeah.
That's about 9 years ago.
Monte
Wow.
I know.
Cassino
Monte Cassino, first time I met Jen.
Yeah.
You've mellowed a bit since then. A bit less intense. Bedtime is slightly later than 8 o'clock, I hear now. That was my first time representing Great Britain. Felt like at the start of, actually I could not make a career out of this, but still got plenty of places I could go and actually make that next jump and operate at probably a higher level than I thought I would be able to.
And that's really fascinating. And I think probably people don't realise you've self-coached for pretty much your whole career.
Yeah, I think since I was self-coached at that point when I got, was 8 foot Bucks Cross. I had a coach who was, who supported me from age probably 16 to 20, but it was online remote stuff. He was from Cornwall originally. He used to coach Annabelle Gummo, if you ever remember her.
She was a great junior.
Yeah, she's still running pretty well these days, but he was advised me and coached me for that period. But since the age of about 20, I've just done it myself. I enjoy that. I see it as a science experiment. I can take those risks and see if it pays off. And if it doesn't, I like the fact that it's all on me. If it does work out, then actually it's down to me as well. So I like that part of the being self-coached.
Talking about science experiments, I guess you have a role in physiology or you've played a role in a lot of athletes' physiology and their development and their understanding of kind of what it takes to kind of perhaps move the needle a little bit in terms of athletic performance. But could you explain to the listeners kind of what physiology is in its simplest terms?
Yeah, sure. So I guess in its simplest terms, physiology is just how the body works, really. But in the context of exercise, it's how does the body respond to exercise, both during a training session or a race, but also how does it adapt to those training sessions. That is what physiology is. What my role typically looks like is getting athletes into the lab and then measuring their physiology during like test conditions. And in the getting to in a little bit more detail, but also trying to keep it reasonably simple, there's 4 primary determinants of performance in terms of how fast you're going to run over a marathon or a 5K or an 800. And those are your VO2 max, your thresholds, your economy, and then if we're talking about the middle distances, your anaerobic capacity. So we can go and measure all those in the lab and identify someone's profile. So you might have 2 athletes running very similar times, but how they go about that is quite different. One of them might have a really big engine, a massive VO2 max, but not be very economical. Whereas you might have the opposite scenario. You might have one athlete who's aerobically really strong, but very weak anaerobically. And the opposite can happen. And you have these athletes running very similar times, but what their physiology looks like is very different. And what they need in training might also be quite different. So my role is primarily profiling athletes and then advising them on the types of training that are probably going to give them the biggest bang for their buck and benefit them and make that final 1 or 2%.
And I guess you're probably quite a good case study in this itself. You've probably used physiology to direct a lot of your training over the years and make those changes and that progression, especially in the marathon distance. But why would you advise someone to go and see a sports physiologist? Or could you use perhaps something you learned from kind of testing yourself that's improved your performance as a reason behind why people might go and see someone like you?
I do believe physiology isn't just for the top-end high-performance athlete, because it really gives you a great sense of knowing what sort of intensities to target for each individual session. So actually, what pace should you be doing your easy runs at? Are you running them a bit too hard, or actually could you run them a little bit faster? I think that's the biggest takeaway for a lot of people is I can run a bit slower here on my easy days and it's absolutely fine. But then if it's a threshold session, what should that look like in terms of pace, heart rate, effort, and just calibrating what that looks like for the individual. And elite athletes, having been in the sport for quite a long time, I think intuitively they've normally got a pretty good idea of where that should be. But even then, there's certainly situations where athletes maybe aren't getting things quite right, and just a little bit of refinement really can make a bit of a difference.
What do you think, like, the main thing you tell athletes is the takeaway? Like, in my head, it would be like pretty much every athlete probably needs to be told to slow down on an easy run or on a threshold session. But what's like the biggest takeaway from all the people you've kind of tested in the past?
Yeah, I think that everybody is doing everything a little bit too hard. And even if it's a VO2 max session, that's going to be a hard session, but it doesn't need to be 10 out of 10 effort, hands on knees on the end. I'm going to take 5 days to recover from this. It needs to be hard, but not. You need to be able to back up that training and do whatever you do on that session shouldn't compromise your plans for the next day and the next day. And how people get fit is by stringing lots of good weeks together, but not exceptional weeks together.
So one of your real areas of interest is shoe economy and the testing. So just tell us a little bit about what it involves and why it interests you so much, Dan.
When did that original Vaporfly come out? 2018, was it? 2018, I believe?
All I remember is putting it on and feeling like I was about to make the Olympic final.
Yeah. So, the Nike Vaporfly 4% was the original super shoe, and everyone knows that it was called the Nike Vaporfly 4% because it was claimed to improve your running economy by about 4%. And since then, there's been a whole wave of super shoes and probably seen quite a lot of development. And you're most likely getting a bigger response than about 4% now in the latest edition of the super shoes. But how they work is a combination of foam, which has got really good energy return properties, in combination with a carbon fiber plate. And actually, most of the benefit seems to be coming from the foam. in that is giving you really good energy return, but it works in complement with the carbon fiber plate because these foams are very soft. You need something in there to add rigidity. To be honest, we still don't quite know how they're working, but Nike came up with a concept. It seems to work, and we've just run with it from there. But in terms of how it improves your performance, it reduces the oxygen cost of the energy cost of running. So that actually, if your typical response to putting on a super shoe is your oxygen cost or your energy cost of running reduces by 4%, which basically means you can actually put out the same energy expenditure and run faster instead. That is obviously advantageous for any distance. So it's basically allowing you to change your physiology by just putting a pair of shoes on, which could take you years worth of training to accomplish.
And you're probably, again, a great case study for this because you did, or I seem to remember you did this last year before the Valencia Marathon. You went in the lab, you took in 2 different pairs of shoes. Was it the Edge and the Sky, the Asics range? You put them on, you ran a series of tests on the treadmill and you found the shoe that you thought would be better suited to you for that race. And you're trying to achieve a similar kind of outcome this year. But what do you think it is perhaps about a super shoe for you that kind of makes it a better shoe than something else?
Yeah, so there's now, originally there was this Nike 4%, and that was the super shoe. It was that or more traditional shoes, and obviously everyone was running in the Nike 4%. Now all the brands have come out with their own really good versions of the super shoe, and actually some brands like Asics, for example, have got 3 different super shoes now available in terms of the Edge, the Sky, and the Ray. So then it actually becomes a question of what am I going to wear? And there's a couple of factors you need to take into account. The first is, well, which one is going to give me the most bang for my buck in terms of economy? Which one is going to reduce my oxygen cost the most? And from that, you can get in the lab and get some really robust numbers. Basically, you'll get someone running around about marathon pace, do 5 or so minutes a couple of times in each shoe that you want to compare. You look at the oxygen cost, so how much oxygen was that athlete using in the different shoes, and just do a comparison there. So actually, which one is giving you the lowest number, which one is reducing your oxygen cost the most. That's one that's most economical. And that is something that actually is once you got the kit, it's quite easy to do. And it just involves probably running 6 times 5 minutes at marathon pace, which is not too difficult. That's going to tell you which shoe is the best in terms of economy, but that is not taking into account the comfort of the shoe and also how it's going to feel, not after 30 minutes of running, but after 42K of running. So that is something you need to take into account as well. So what I've done previously is started off with a lab, found out which one is giving me the best economy, and then taken it out into the field and really stressing it in some marathon specific sessions where you're running close to marathon pace for a long period of time. And firstly, just is it comfortable? So if it's not comfortable, that's probably not the shoe for you.
Yeah,
You
you're
don't
getting
want
blisters or your feet are burning. It's probably not the right one.
Exactly. But also your biomechanics may change slightly over the course of a race. You want something that is going to still feel good if you are quite fatigued. So you've got the science, but also that feel aspect as well.
And this might be getting a little bit geeky now, but then also the way a shoe has been designed has evolved since the 4%. You've got like the Puma Faster R, which is very like on your toes compared to perhaps the Asics Sky, which is a bit more for a heel striker. No, the Edge, which is a bit more for a heel striker. So again, that must play into the decision-making process for someone who's going to go and buy a super shoe as well.
There are shoes that are better and there are shoes that are not so good because of just those properties like the foam. That is such a key component. And if you've got a really good foam that gives you a lot of energy return, that is going to be a great shoe for most people. But then you have got the structure of the shoe and the shape of the carbon fiber plate may suit individuals better or worse, depending upon probably lots of different factors. But yeah, if they land more on their forefoot or on their heel, or just actually their ground contact times, what speed you're running at for the marathon. If you're running at close to 3-minute K pace, that's very different to if you're running at 5-minute K pace. So you probably want something different from that shoe as well. Like ground contact time is going to be affected by that. You probably want something a bit less aggressive if you're running close to 5-minute Ks. So that's why it's great to get individual data on yourself, but also pay attention to how it feels. Just because Puma Fast R3, which has had loads of marketing around it, and yes, definitely had some people running really well in it, and I've seen some great data on it. That might not suit you if you are someone who actually is a slower marathon runner, and you might be better off a different shoe.
And I guess kind of that as well, like the speed in which you complete the 42k distance. Does that depend perhaps on what you should have on your feet as well? Does everybody who's standing on the start line for a marathon need to wear a super shoe? Or is that kind of dependent on how fast you're moving over the ground also?
Yeah, really good question. There is a bit of evidence out there to say that actually super shoes are less beneficial in terms of your economy saving at slower speeds. And also, if you're going to be out there for longer, it's even more important that you have something that's comfortable. Having said that, I think super shoes are going to be of benefit to everybody. It's just the degree of benefit. The caveat is it just needs to be comfortable. I think that's what it underpins, regardless of if it's great and it gives you really good economy gains. Actually, if it's giving you blisters, if it's really stressing different muscles in different ways. So shoes that are more aggressive and got less of a heel counter are going to stress your posterior chain more, so your hamstrings, your calves, your glutes. That's probably not going to be the one for you if you're structurally not ready to cope with that.
So in terms of the masses that are out there, in the beginning it was just the elites with their super shoes, and as you said already, every brand has its own super shoe. Now the masses don't necessarily get a chance to go in the lab and test themselves, and also they're so expensive, so buying a pair of shoes, you can't really buy multiple pairs to try them out to find the best pair. What's your advice to those that are maybe venturing out for their first pair of super shoes? Would you avoid carbon and just go for the foam, as you said earlier?
If you're taking your marathon pretty seriously and you want to give a good go at it, I would invest in a pair of carbon fiber shoes. Yeah. But make sure that you do use them in training, and probably go for one that isn't marketed as a bit extreme. So I'd like, using that Puma Fast R3 as an example, it hasn't got a heel counter. It's really aggressive. We know that a lot of people just don't get on with it that well. There's definitely safer options out there. I think the Asics Edge and Sky are pretty safe options. Like the Nikes ones, people seem to get on with pretty well. If you see a shoe and it just looks a little bit out there, maybe give that a miss, even if that's the sexy option, I'd say.
Yeah, and usually with a running store, you can go down and try it, on the treadmill. They're not necessarily going to let you go outside the door and run a 6-minute, verification run. But yeah, you could probably definitely get on the treadmill and get a feel. And often for runners, it's wearing a similar brand to they're used to and they have been used to, because you're right in terms of the size, the fit and the comfort. Changing that, some brands can be totally different even in sizes, and so it might be tempting to buy that online shoe that you've suddenly seen a percentage cheaper. Now we've got Black Friday coming up, but sometimes going from brand to brand can be totally different, can't it?
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Like the last of a shoe tends to be the same. Like if it's a daily trainer or if it's a race shoe. So if you're always running Asics, probably start with an Asics race shoe. Going to an actual store is also a great thing to do in terms of if you can try it on and actually just see if it feels comfortable. Yeah. And there's some evidence out there to say that the shoe that just feels most comfortable to run in is probably the one that is the best for you in terms of economy. It's unlikely to be the one that's worst for you in terms of how efficient you are in it. Yeah. So I would use that as a great starting point.
And also the hard work, and you guys are doing it right now, the effort that goes into a marathon block, to skimp on your shoes at last minute. I would say, it's a bit like, tires on your car. Yeah. You're not going to buy them on the internet and try and get the cheapest version possible. If you know that, you're going on a big journey with your family, you're going to make sure it's the best fitted shoe for you. So yeah, head down your local running store and they're definitely pointing in the right direction.
Yeah, 100%. I would definitely be paying a little bit more to try it on. If you think about, you've gone to do, even if you're doing a UK marathon, you're paying for a hotel, you're paying for travel. The cost of a super shoe is not, it's a lot more than it used to be, but it's nowhere near as much as all that other stuff that's going on. I think how many months you've invested into that marathon. And that's why I've got about 4 options when it comes to choosing what I'm going to wear come Valencia, because I've been indecisive. I want to cover every option.
And is there, in your opinion, any risks to people sort of wearing carbon-plated shoes, and perhaps like how often they should wear them and what they should be wearing them for? There are, like, you see the odd picture online of people walking around Tesco in their super shoes, which like is mad when you think about the wear of them and how many miles they actually have in them.
There is this idea that super shoes reduce the loads on your muscles and your body in general, and that actually you can probably absorb a bit more training. Now, the evidence of that isn't great. It's very hard to just completely get rid of those forces. And then what tends to happen is it actually just transfers the forces from one joint to another, or from one muscle group to another group. And I think I remember racing in plimsolls effectively, which were all traditional racing flats, and having calves which were so beaten up I couldn't walk for a week, basically. Like, just to go out for a jog would be incredibly
Would you remember
painful.
the Mayflies? Did you ever run in the Mayflies that it was almost like the insole, and because it was going so minimal at one point that it was, the lighter the shoe, the better, that it did feel like you were just literally running on your shin bone the whole time.
Yeah, I think I had a pair of, I think they were New Balance 1500s or something.
The ones
They
that
were
weighed
about
like 50 grams or something.
Yeah, they were about
like
a
that.
centimetre thick, and I ran Cardiff half one year, and it was my second half, and I ran really well for the time. I think I 66:40 something. Delighted with that, but like for 5 days I could run, but it was just DOMs, like really sore. And super shoes have definitely got rid of that. They definitely deload the calves in most for most people, but you'll find that maybe the quads and hips get loaded a little bit more. And there seems to be some evidence that the types of injuries we're seeing are changing as well, and where, for example, people are getting stress fractures happen at different sites, different overuse injuries. So maybe it does mitigate against some of that muscle damage, but it's also going to transfer those forces somewhere else. So that's something to say to start with. Don't run in them for every run.
I was going to
That's
say,
probably
can you
beneficial.
overtrain in your super shoes?
There was an idea that you might actually just get used to the super shoes, in that you might not get those economy gains anymore because you've just benefited from wearing them all the time, but maybe our ligaments, tendons, joints are deconditioning.
Yeah.
That doesn't seem to be the case, but at the same time, people can also just put them on straight away and they are instantly better.
Yeah.
They don't need to necessarily, you'd obviously want to do a few runs in them, but there's not really a learning effect in terms of you're going to just keep getting better by just learning to run in them. I do think that doing most of your runs in a week should just be in normal daily trainers with non-carbon fiber plates, because running is a skill.
Yeah.
Our economy gets better just from running more. And if we are always doing that in really soft trainers but really control how we move, that might not be the way to long-term get the biggest benefits and improvements in your running performance. I do all my harder sessions in super shoes because I do think it probably does reduce the load a little bit. It also helps you calibrate against where I'm going to race. What sort of pace can I achieve on race day? And they're just fun to run in as well. They just feel good. Compared to running in old school flats.
You feel a difference.
You do feel a difference.
What about shoe rotation? Obviously talking about going from normal shoes into super shoes, and even with normal shoes, is it important to have multiple pairs on the go? I mean, like, it's pretty wet and windy right now, so conditions will change as well on runs.
Yeah, and again, every shoe is going to load your body in a slightly different way. So if you're rotating round, then the theory is that, you're going to not put so much strain on each individual ligament, tendon, bone, etc. I don't do that personally. I basically have super shoes and then a daily trainer that's going at the same time. Yeah. But I seem to be quite robust, and I will just wear my daily trainers till they fall apart.
I was going to say, when do you know a shoe is done, in terms of when do you know you need to...
Depends who you ask.
Going off Dan's shoes.
Right, Jeremy, what's the inside of Dan's shoes?
Mine is either the tread is completely gone, or my foot is going through the outer.
Right.
Or both. Or both.
Is that the same for super shoes as well, or...?
Yeah, super shoes will reduce their effectiveness as they get older. The foams are actually very resilient, and so in some ways more resilient than a traditional EVA, but even then they are going to degrade over time.
Do you log your miles in your shoes, or you not? Because I know people that do that. Jen, do you do that?
Well, if I'm logging my miles, I've done something like 16,000 in a pair of shoes because I. But
do you know that? Do you know per shoe?
I just don't.
No, because there are a few people that will log the number of miles to a pair of shoes, and they know exactly almost how many miles left in that shoe.
I typically know if I've worn a pair of shoes on like a bit of a rotation basis for 3 to 4 months, it's probably time to to throw them out?
I haven't got enough time to track my mileage in the shoes. I can loosely work it out. Going right, I bought them in January, and now it's now it's now June, so I've done 6 months of running.
Yeah.
80% of my mileage within that shoe. I've averaged this amount of mileage. Yeah, it's probably time to have a new pair of shoes.
I guess with like super shoes as well, like I typically try and buy a fresh pair for a key race I'm doing, but then that gets downgraded to the training shoe afterwards, and I kind of cycle them through like that. So I'm only getting a new pair of super shoes for like the key races, and then they become the training shoe.
Yeah, I mean that's what I do, and also psychologically, it's to have a box fresh pair of trainers for
and
your,
they
for your
smell
race.
good, like it's great.
There's no mud stains on them and all this.
And you do feel the difference when you put a new pair of shoes, or especially a new super shoe again out of the box. You definitely feel a different reaction off the ground to a pair that you've
battered
and put even a marathon or a marathon block into them as well. So there's definitely a difference, isn't there?
Yeah, absolutely. Can't wait to put my fresh pair on for Valencia.
So where are we going, Dan? Next 5 years, where do you see it? What's going to happen in terms of new materials, technology? Will a shoe have a mile counter on it? So there you go. So to show you how many miles you've done per shoe.
Well, I keep thinking we're probably getting close to the potential of what you can do with a pair of shoes, and then something else happens, and there seems to be another step change. But I do think we are getting there because of World Athletics regulations and that they've put in place a couple of rules to help make it not turn into an arms race.
Can you explain that obviously to the general public out there, to be what has been allowed, what's been reined in? Because there's differences, aren't there, between spikes and obviously road shoes.
There are also shoes that have been developed but aren't allowed to be used for racing.
Yeah,
now.
you can use some for training, can't you?
You can use them for training.
Yeah. So in race competition, for the roads, there needs to be the stack height. So basically, the height of the foam needs to be 40 millimeters or less, and you can only have one carbon fiber plate. Those are the two rules that World Athletics have put in place, which are quite simple rules, but what we were seeing is that stack heights were just going up and up and up. And at some point, because we know that the foam's the key ingredient and part of it, so if we can just put more foam underneath, then people are going to run faster. So that's capped what the manufacturers can do from the foam side of things. So the direction now we're going in is the foams are just having even better properties, so even more energy return. But we are now thinking about going back to just making the shoes lighter again.
Yeah.
Because that was always the way people made fast shoes, was just make it lighter and lighter. And we've gone the opposite. We've gone big and we've gone actually a little bit heavier.
Yeah.
But you're more economical in it. And now we're going back to, we've got great foams, we've got our carbon fiber plate. We need to the next step is just to make them lighter again. Because 100 grams on your shoe is worth about 1% running economy.
Okay.
So there's definitely reasons to have a lighter shoe, but it's that balance between having that energy return and the lightness. And this is where brands are going to really strip down their shoe now as much as they can, have the lightest upper they can. And if there's bits of a foam that aren't needed, get rid of it.
Yeah. Because some brands have done that, but it's obviously brought down the life, span of a shoe, isn't it? Where it's almost you get a one race in them and then bin them. But some, some of them up towards £500 of a shoe, which obviously towards the mass market, that probably prices out a few and thinking I'm going to get one run and I'm done. What's your thought on that? Does that excite you, the technology or the way it's going, or is it because you've seen the development in super shoes? Do you like what's happened in the running world with that? Are you for them, or would you like to have seen it kind of like a bit more, policed in the very beginning?
I think in general they've been good for the sport.
Yeah.
I think more people run marathons now probably because of them, and it's made the marathon especially more of an exciting event and more media and focus on it. I like running in super shoes. They feel great. My only hesitation and disappointment is that I can't directly compare what I'm doing now with the likes of Steve Jones back in the day. And there's just definitely time inflation is real, and that the amount of people running under 2:10 for the marathon on the male side is absolutely insane now, whereas it used to be a really, really like tiny like club to be in that sub 2:10 group.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's too late for that now. It's out of the bag. We've got super shoes now.
Yeah.
And in general, I think they're great. I ran 2:27 in my first marathon, which was probably not a properly serious attempt. In my first like proper time, I gave it a go around 2:22, and I'm now down to 2:12. Some of that is obviously the shoe.
Yeah.
It's not, I haven't got 10 minutes faster because of shoes, but I may have got 5 minutes faster because of shoes. Could be that sort of ballpark.
Yeah.
So it'd be nice to know, like, how much is it because of the training I've done and how much of it is because I've just shoe development.
One run we're out. Jem, what about you? Are you for or against? Because again, you've seen the kind of development, and you talked about that first time you put the shoes on, of like, it was a wow moment, you know, because there was lots of, obviously in 2016, there was lots of talking about Rio Olympics because they were starting to come out.
Yeah.
I'd heard of carbon shoes. Paul Tergat broke the marathon world record in a pair of Fila shoes that had a carbon plate many years before, but it never really came through. Hoka obviously had the stack shoes for years, and some people kind of thought, you know, that's never going to take on. Were you for, against? Are you for, against now?
I'm definitely for anything that I can put on my feet to make me run faster and it feel easier. Like, I'm all over that. I enjoy like the development in the sport and the running. Again, like, it'd be quite interesting to go back and perhaps run a half marathon in, like, I did it in a pair of like the Saucony Type A's or something, my first ever half. And it would be fun to go back and run another one in that pair of shoes and do a like for like see what the difference is and what the fitness and the difference between that might look like. But I really enjoy like the new technology and the super shoe era we're in now. I wouldn't want to go back.
I see a non-carbon or foam league or something where people just like race in a pair of the old almost just insoles against the ground. I mean, as a master athlete myself, and having been, you know, around a long time, seeing the development, I think you're absolutely right. It's difficult, and as a coach in that time as well, to judge the progression, also people's, you know, ability to cope with volume as well. Because I know you're a massive fan, Dan, in terms of the, you know, a real big indicator of people's ability to improve is volume, and obviously the volume that people can put in training with the foam in shoes now has continued to be raised. And so from my coaching practice has had to change and evolve with technology, but also running a marathon. You know, I ran New York last year, and I remember feeling the next day so much better than my first ever half marathon, Cardiff half, in the old shoes, where my legs were battered for a half marathon. I'm running the marathon and thinking, yeah, I'm tired. The legs are tired, but they just weren't destroyed. And there's something about that I think it's buying people a bit of longevity. And you're absolutely right. It's making the sport a bit cooler as well. And I think the masses, and so I think I would have to say I'm for it. It's just it's a shame we can't always now compare to previous.
I actually bought a pair of old flats, like Saucony Fast Twitches, which actually they're not even that flat compared to some of them I used to run in, but I bought them for doing like strides and drills and that sort of thing, because one of my things that I'm not actually that good at in terms of my personal physiology is my economy. So if I can teach my body to move a bit better, I have a better Achilles tendon, which stores and releases more energy, then you can probably teach your body to do that better by wearing old school flats. But I just put them on, and they actually feel quite fun in that I feel like I'm taken back in time in terms of kids, and I'm like
going old school.
I'm 15 years old. I'm on the track and just burying myself and going, this is quite fun. But you do notice the difference in terms of the fatigue and just the ease of running. I'd only do like short hill sprints or strides and that sort of stuff in them.
Wouldn't take them out for a marathon session.
I did experiment a little bit,
that.
and I think I did 8 times 2K on the track in them.
How were the legs?
They were noticeably more tired.
Is that when you had to take the week off afterwards?
No.
Talking about like touching on perhaps like past performances and what people have done previously, someone like Paula Radcliffe, she ran phenomenally over the marathon distance, 2:15. What do you think she could do in that fitness right now with a pair of super shoes on?
Oh, you've got to be thinking like 2:12.
Yeah.
Like that sort of ballpark, I'd say.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the other thing is the economy tends to improve by roughly 4%, but that doesn't directly translate into 4% faster. It's probably about 2.5 to 3% faster, because as we run faster, there's actually more air resistance. And so it's not like the oxygen cost of running at a given speed doesn't go up linearly. It's sort of a, how would you say, exponential relationship. So that seems to be the maths, about 2.5%, 3% faster. So who's good at maths here? 215 minus 2.5%.
Don't ask
3%.
me.
It's going to be about 212, I'd say, which is phenomenal and would still be world class today.
Yeah.
Well,
215 is still world class.
Probably equal to
world record.
what is the equal world record, which is so another thing to discuss. So you share a podcast together, and you've been sharing your journey on Valencia. So you've talked a little bit about the shoes that you're going to be wearing, but have you done your final testing, Dan? Are we a few more weeks of final tinkering in terms of the shoes you're going to wear for the big day? Jen, have you been on the treadmill and tested your shoes?
I've not. I committed to a shoe early doors.
Yeah.
And I'm sticking with it because I think it's a great option.
But you didn't go under the
lab
testing
or the
lab
testing
conditions.
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
Don't want that decision making process.
That's what I should have done. I haven't done. I thought I'd made my decision.
Yeah.
And I was going to go for the Puma Fast R3s,
Okay.
which I have raced Cardiff Half in.
Yeah.
I raced Cardiff 10K in. I raced the Home Nations 5K in. And I had some good mixed bag of results, but most in terms of my performance, I'm really happy with my Cardiff Half. Recovered from it really well.
Yeah.
So I was pretty decided on them, and then took them out for one of my last key long runs last week, and which was, what did I do? 5x5K for K steady in awful conditions, like a storm.
Okay.
And just pulled up quite sore from it afterwards. I just on the cool down, left hamstring, left calf, quite sore. And as I said earlier, that's one of those shoes that probably stresses the posterior chain a bit more. We've seen people like DNF or pull out of marathons who've been wearing that shoe. It gives me great economy gains. It's the best shoe I've tested in terms of economy. And so I can get away with it from Cardiff in terms of a half marathon. I think it's a bit risky to run for a marathon, so I'm probably going to choose something else. But I don't know what that something else is yet.
Okay. Question in terms of other things runners can do, because obviously you talked about wearing shoes for shorter reps that are non-carbon, maybe non-foam, but are there exercises in terms of S&C that runners can do that can benefit their use of super shoes?
So that I don't think we really know. We definitely know there are lots of things we can do to improve our running economy just in general. Running economy is funny, but it's very easy to measure when you've got the right kit, but actually it's very complex in terms of what determines your economy. Yeah. Some of it's your biomechanics, which obviously you can do things about. Some of it is just your anatomy. So if you've got long legs, short body, that's associated with better running economy. Yeah. You've just got longer levers. Your Achilles tendon, if you can get that, you can change the properties of that Achilles tendon to hold more energy, have a better return. Yeah. And also things within the muscle itself. So the mitochondria, how effective they are at converting oxygen into ATP, into energy. All of these things determine our economy. In terms of what actually we can do to improve that, train more, that's been shown. So economy just tends to trend better over the course of a career. So even masters athletes who are in there, they've done case studies of world record holders in their 70s for their age group. Their economy is world class. Yeah. Their VO2 max has dropped massively, but their economy is still really, really good. So just doing more years of training helps economy. Strength training and plyometric training has been shown to improve economy by a similar extent that putting on a pair of super shoes would. So things that really target the calves, especially things like doing hops, pogos, jumps, all that sort of thing have been shown to help improve economy. And I guess one of the key things that we can do as an intervention is our carbohydrate intake. We are more efficient if we're burning carbs. Yeah. So if we can get as much carbs into the system as possible and tolerate that during a race or during a marathon, and we've done a really good carb load, that's going to translate into better economy. So lots of things to play with.
Lots of stuff to play with. Yeah. And Jen, anything you do, especially in the gym? Because obviously you're able to run faster for longer. A lot of it's about maintaining your form and and making sure you still get that reaction off the ground in the latter stages. So is there anything you do consciously outside of just running? Or
one thing that I've really focused on this year has been introducing plyometrics into my gym routine, and I think that's had a really big benefit. I keep in strides at least once a week.
Yeah.
I hate doing them, but I try to maintain that once, especially during marathon training.
How long are we talking stride wise?
Anywhere from like 12 to 15 seconds.
Yeah, so
with
quite
like,
short.
Yeah, and then I try and stand for a minute between them, but that feels like such
Are you
a
restless
long
in that
yeah,
time?
I'm just like counting down the seconds, wanting to get it over with. But I think, those are the two kind of key things, and like really focusing, especially in the marathon build, on my carbohydrate intake. Fueling during runs. I practiced the carb load for the first time this weekend before my long run yesterday.
How was it?
It was fine. It was way easier than I thought it was going to be be fair.
Was it a mix? Was it a gels? Was it a
The
combination?
carb load consisted of a lot of jelly babies, bread, jam, just like all the
traditional,
sugary,
some more traditional
stuff. And then during the run, just gels, because that's what I'll be taking in the race. So all those things combined, I think, has helped to improve my economy. I think I've been quite lucky in that all my lab results have always shown that I've got it's been written as Dan in the report as world-class economy.
Ooh,
so
I love that. And it's a question to you both, because you're both just about to hit your taper for Valencia. So what's your advice to people, because it's always one of the, the points of discussion is, that great work's gone in, but what people feel like the benefits of a taper, and what kind of things people should do and avoid potentially in that time.
Expect to feel rubbish, I would say. And I think a lot of it is those expectations versus reality, and that you're dropping all this mileage, you expect to feel good.
You might as well tell Jen this, because
I'm listening intently.
First time, you expect to feel good because the mileage is dropping, but actually you don't feel necessarily that good. The evidence in terms of what your taper should look like, all the evidence says keep your frequency of runs the same. So if you run every day, keep running every day. Keep the intensity the same. So the intensity of your sessions and your easy days, keep them the same. Just start dropping the mileage down. So dropping it between 30 and 50%, probably come race week, is how you should go about it to mitigate against feeling really bad. Because if your body's used to running every day, you want to keep running every day. That's what it's used to. But expect to feel not very great.
But
just what you need to hear, Jen. A few phantom pains here and there as well.
Exactly. You feel like you're going to be ill every day.
Brilliant.
Anyone that coughs anywhere near you, you'll be just
I'm in hibernation as of this week.
And although you've had your shoe choice set for months, you'll be going,
there's always a bit of doubt. There's always a bit of doubt.
Once you confirm yours, I'm going to be questioning myself then.
So any last minute questions for Dan regarding your marathon debut, Jen?
What should I do in the first 5K of the race? Just go a bit slower than I think?
Always, if in doubt, go a bit slower. That's the mistake that almost every marathon runner makes. If you look at the finishing times and the pacing of most marathoners, I'd say 90% go out too fast and end up slowing a lot in the final 10K. Whereas you can always pick it up. So if you go out a bit more conservatively, and even if it's too conservatively, a lot of people run their PBs by being a minute or two faster in the second half. Paula Radcliffe, we talked about, I'm sure she negative split when she ran 2:15. When I ran my PB, it was very even. It was very much an even split. It's just also such a bad experience if you go out too hard and you're hanging on for dear life. You end up with a time that you're probably a bit disappointed with. You're so much more sore and beaten up afterwards. The recovery is longer, and the whole just experience on the day is just not fun. It's just not fun. So if in doubt, just go off a bit easier.
Note to self.
Go
off a little easier.
And quick prediction, Dan, what are you going to run in Valencia?
How precise do you want me to be?
Wow, a man of numbers. I expect you to be very close. If it goes to plan, without pressure.
Assuming.
Blame coach if it doesn't. Okay.
Assuming conditions are perfect, like they always are
in
in
Valencia.
I'd be confident of a PB. I think somewhere between 2:12.59 and 2:10.00. I'd go.
Wow, that would be great. And Jen, you want sub 2:30, don't you? So.
That would be 2:29.59. I'd be a happy girl.
Love that. Well, Dr. Dan Osborne Nash, thank you so much for being on the Beyond the Track podcast. We wish you all the best for Valencia and enjoy that taper period now. And I'm sure any last minute questions, Jen will be on the phone to tap your brain. But we hope you've enjoyed coming into the studio today.
Cheers, James. Really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this podcast with a friend, and we'll be back next week.